Hi guys, welcome to this quick video which just talks you through what we're going to be spending the next term on, or half term. We're going to be looking at creative writing. It's part of your GCSE in English language, so I'm just going to give you an overview of the question, what the question looks like, some key things for you to know before we kind of crack on with the next 5 weeks of lots of writing creatively. So, just do a title, GCSE Creative Writing. Now, a lot of what I'm going to explain to you, you can get out of this piece of paper, which is an example question, okay? But I will cover some other things. So what I'll do is I'll just make some notes on here so that you can follow along, and what we expect you to be doing is writing these notes down in your English book, okay? So this piece of creative writing is worth, it says down here, 40 marks, okay, which works out as 25% of your language GCSE. Now in English you get 2 GCSEs, you get English language and English literature. So this question here is worth a whole quarter of the English language GCSE, so it can be the difference between 2 to 3 grades. Now what it is as it says here, it's a 45-minute question. It comes at the end of an hour and 45-minute exam, and it's essentially testing your ability to write creatively, okay? You get given 2 choices and you're given a picture as part of those choices. Now the picture is just to be used to inspire your creative writing. It's not a case of you have to use it and you have to describe exactly that picture. So for example, in this one we've got a jungle setting. That doesn't mean you have to say in the middle there is a bridge and on the floor there is water. You can use that as inspiration. You could be in any part of the jungle, you could be on the bridge, you could be somewhere completely differently, so it's different. So it's just there to inspire you to do a decent piece of creative writing. So what you normally get is a description choice. For example, here it just says write a description suggested by this picture, or some sort of narrative choice, which we've got down here. The opening of a story involving a deadly encounter. Now, you don't have to tell the examiner which one of those you've gone for, so you can kind of merge them in a way. So you might use the jungle setting, because it might give you some inspiration, but you might also have a deadly encounter in that jungle. That's absolutely fine. The other thing that it's worth mentioning is it says up here, and it says this on every exam paper, you need to plan your answer. Okay, it says you're reminded of the need to plan your answer. So if we look at those 45 minutes, what you're really looking at is 5 minutes of planning at the start, about 30 to 35 minutes is going to be writing, and then you're looking at maybe 5 minutes at the end to edit. Now, in that time, realistically, we're looking in this question at quality over quantity. So you're given quite a few pages in the exam booklet, but really we want you to be writing 4 high quality paragraphs in that time. Now, all the things you've learned from the start of primary school, really, not just the writing you would have done in secondary school, the writing at primary school, all of that applies to this, okay? So we're not just talking about skills that you might have picked up, like we did Freytag's pyramid last year, is not just like thinking about narrative structure, for example. It's also things, simple things like show, don't, tell. So you're using all those creative writing skills, all the kind of things that you've learnt from back in primary school to create a really good descriptive piece. Now, the next thing is that when I said at the start that you get 40 marks, those 40 marks, as it says here, are made up of two different things. They're made up of 24 marks for content and organisation and 16 marks for technical accuracy. So we'll just talk about that, what that means. So 24 marks goes to content and organisation. You can probably already guess what that means. Content is what you write. It's the kind of things you include, such as the vocabulary you use, or the language devices that you use, for example, or the style you use, the tone you use, the voice you use. Now, organisation is more to do with the structure. So, for example, have you used paragraphs? That will be marked in that question. We've done a lot on different narrative structures. For example, in this one, you might use a cyclical structure. So you might start somewhere and go back to it at the end. That would be included in the marks for your content and your organisation. Now, the 16 marks, as you can probably guess, is because it's technical accuracy. It's the stuff that everybody dreads when they're doing a piece of creative or viewpoint writing. It's your SPAG. Okay, so it's your spelling, your punctuation, and your grammar. Now, spelling's pretty obvious. We all know what that means. Punctuation, you have to learn to use a range of punctuation for this piece of assessment. So we're looking at trying to use dashes or colons or semicolons, for example. If you know how to use them, you're already one step ahead and you should be trying to use them in your creative writing. The other thing is when it talks about grammar, you're also marked on your sentence structures. Now, not only is it looking for whether you're using sentences correctly and you're punctuating them correctly, it's also looking at whether you've varied the sentence length or whether you've varied the structure. So if all your sentences sound the same and they're all the same length, you will lose marks for that. It will massively decrease your marks. So I think that is pretty much all we need to go through for you to begin this term learning about this GCSE creative writing element. You obviously will go over this when you're doing your GCSEs throughout the 2 years. This is more of just an introduction and just getting us doing some creative writing. It's really easy to practice at home, to do lots of different types of description, to work on your vocabulary, and the best way to become a really good writer, as any writer will say, any author will tell you, is just to read lots. So make sure you're still reading lots at home, and if you read a word you're not sure of, my suggestion would be to look it up and maybe try and use it in the next piece of writing that you do. So, worth 40 marks, 45 minutes long. You get a picture and 2 instructions. You choose which one. You spend 5 minutes planning it. You do about 4 paragraphs. You use all the skills that you've ever learned for creative writing. And you're looking at your vocabulary, your language devices, how you structure it, and also how you spell things, how you punctuate them, and how you use your sentence types and sentence structures. Okay, hopefully that was useful and everything makes sense. And good luck with the creative writing that you're going to be doing over the next few weeks.